your way on this episode of Wind.
Austin Cindric, whose grandfather won the Indy 500 as a car owner. Cindric is going to bring them to the line way up high to block Ryan Blaney, and at the line, Cindric beats Bubba Wallace by half a car length.
Cars never won.
Holy cow's right, kid. You just won the biggest race of your life.
What I try to do, Jack, is I try to look at things in a whole, right? So we can't have a car that just works well at Daytona, right? Or just works well on a road course. And we have to have a car that works well everywhere.
Sammy Smith in the 22, Stephen Nassie in the 51. They get on the throttle. It's a good start.
Daniel Dye leads lap one. Here comes Jesse Love on the move to the bottom side of the racetrack.
I think just being a racer, you're competitive in nature, and seeing somebody like Austin Cindric, who's only a couple years older than me, going out and winning the Daytona 500, you're like saying, like, I can do that too.
In 2022, Force Indy will compete in the Indy Lights, and it will do so with Haitian-American Ernie Francis Jr. as the driver.
Yeah, I think it's such an amazing initiative that, Rod Reed and Roger Penske have put together. I think it's such a great program, and really be like the spokesperson for what they're trying to do. It's just incredible.
Wind Tunnel is brought to you by Advance Auto Parts, the official auto parts retailer of NASCAR. Here's your Wind Tunnel host, Jack Arute.
Welcome, everybody, to yet another edition of Jack Arute's Wind Tunnel. Yours truly, Jack Arute, on board, and I'm pleased to be joined with the only other real true member of Team Wind Tunnel. He is the voice of PRN's At the Track, Lenny Baticki. And Lenny, the epicenter of motorsports, 9 days to 2 weeks, was the Daytona International Speedway, and just down the road, the new Smyrna Speedway. And man, were we treated to some exciting racing. Let's start with that 9-day super late models, pro late models, mod tour type events that were held at the new Smyrna Speedway. Sammy Smith wins the super late model championship, but we saw some guys from the Cup scene dip down to try and steal some of the cash, and we saw an assortment.
Yeah, we sure did. I was really excited to see Ryan Preece give it a try, and to have William Byron pick up the Clyde Hart to just kind of start things out. And then he comes back and snags the Orange Blossom. I thought that was really cool that on the night before the Super Bowl of Motorsports, Daytona 500, William Byron, picks up, heads down, gets in his hot rod there for the Donnie Wilson and the crew prepared, and got him another win. So very, very cool. And Sammy Smith is the real deal. K&N East champion. This kid continues to get better and better. His personality starting to blossom a little bit. So I really think that that's going to be good. Over on the pro late model, two rising stars. Caden Honeycutt from Texas grabbed a win late in the week. Now, he is one to watch. This guy is really moving up the ladder here on the East Coast, the Cars Tour, places like that. Caden Honeycutt's going to be a factor. But the breakout star in late models was a guy named Michael Hind. Big old mullet, 17 years old, just full of fire and winning. His car had flames on it. He had everything cool. And I think they were a couple of the stars of the pro late models.
New Smyrna Speedway probably enjoyed its best World Series of asphalt racing in probably the rosters, 50 strong in some cases, from all over the United States. What does that portend for the Advance Auto Parts NASCAR Weekly Racing Series as more and more tracks start to shake off the winter doldrums and start to schedule their first events of 2020?
Well, I tell you, it says get to those tracks early, because at New Smyrna one night, they had to turn people away. They had it so packed. So your local track, whether it's I-80, where those folks are the promoters of the year, or wherever you do your Advance Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series cheering from, get there early and really get to know these drivers. They're rising stars, and racing is back with full fire.
A little bit later in this show, some news that will be very applicable to Auto Parts NASCAR Weekly Racing Series is the announcement by Anheuser-Busch that Busch Light has formed a program called Accelerate Her, which will devote $10 million worth of assets to promote female racers from across the country in their efforts to rise to the pinnacle of NASCAR. And that, of course, would be eventually at the Cup level. There are deserving female racers that will be able to, knock on wood, hopefully over the course of the 3 years commitment by AB, be able to be part of this Accelerate Her program.
Yeah, I think it's a great program. PRN's At the Track has interviewed over 100 different unique females through our years, and we've gotten to see a lot of them on their way up. Amber Bossine, who is one of the drivers that is kicking this off. Brittany Zamora, really one to watch.
Well, we will get a chance to chat with Brittany a little bit later in this particular.
Yeah, she is a wheelman in the Wheelman Series down there, and she knows how to get to victory lane. It'll be fun to watch all of those ladies as they rise up, and the ones like Jade Avedisian and them that aren't quite old enough yet to participate, but there's some really good ones rising through the midget ranks.
Lenny, it's always a treat to visit with you, and we certainly look forward to your coverage of the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series action throughout this season.
Always fun. Talk to you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Let's set the roster of guests for this week's episode, shall we? As I mentioned, you'll meet Brittany Zamora, who Lenny calls a true wheelman, or maybe we should say wheel woman. Former NASCAR Cup winner and current NBC NASCAR Analyst Jeff Burton will join me later, and the mayor will weigh in on his takeaways from the Daytona 500. And as the IndyCar Series gets ready to launch their season this weekend in St. Petersburg, I'll introduce you to a young man, Ernie Francis Jr., who has dominated the Trans Am Series and parlayed a victory in the SRX event at ORP last season into a dream ride as he starts to climb the ladder in IndyCar competition. He traces his roots to Haiti, and together with Force Indy, becomes the first IndyCar community's minority-driven and minority-owned team in the Indy Lights series. Ernie Francis Jr. is up first.
Ernie Francis Jr. wins for the Breathless Racing Team.
Winning is a feeling that doesn't really get old.
And I'll visit with him next.
Follow us on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And be sure to subscribe to Wind Tunnel's YouTube channel, where you'll discover bonus content. There's more Wind Tunnel coming your way after the break.
With Advance Auto Parts, you can get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. We have a wide variety of parts in stock, and you can get them fast. Order online with Advance Same Day and get your part with same-day pickup in-store, same-day curbside, or same-day delivery. It's the fastest way to get the part you need, where you need it, when you need it. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
Into turn one. Ernie Francis Jr. just holding on. Boris said leading the race here in the Dayglow Yellow, with Ernie Francis right behind, coming out of 6 and into 7. Ernie on the brakes as late as he dares and just drifts through into the lead. And Ernie Francis Jr. takes his first win of 2021.
White flag, we're going into the last lap of the race. Ernie Francis Jr., Bobby Labonte, there's Scott Speed and Marco Andretti racing for third spot. We're off with turn number 4, an SRX Series checkered flag for Ernie Francis Jr. at Indianapolis.
It is time now for the next step. In 2022, it's an upgraded class as Force Indy will compete in the Indy Lights, and it will do so with Haitian-American Ernie Francis Jr. as the driver.
Welcome back to your podcast home for motorsports conversation, Jack Arute's Wind Tunnel.
Well, the NTT IndyCar Series takes the green flag on their 2022 campaign at 12:30 this Sunday in St. Petersburg, Florida. But 3 hours before that, the Indy Lights Series will kick the festivities off with their Indy Lights GP. And in that field will be a young man that is getting an opportunity to climb the ladder and eventually make it to the Indy 500. multi-time SCCA Trans Am champ, and one of the winners in the SRX series. His resume is chock full of trips to victory lane. I'm pleased to be joined now by Ernie Francis Jr. All right, Ernie, this is a big opportunity for you and Force Indy as part of IndyCar and the IndyCar community's race for equality and change. You got to shake your mount down just a couple of days ago in Sebring. How'd that go?
Yeah, no, it went very well for us. Testing is so big in these cars, especially for us, new team getting all put together. And for me, driving these cars. So every lap that we turn gets us better and better. But yeah, testing went awesome. We feel really good about where we're at, and we're ready to hit the streets of St. Pete.
It seems no matter what you decide to jump into, it doesn't take you long to figure it out. Case in point is it's my understanding that your first opportunity at open wheel, open cockpit racing was the Formula Regionals America Series last year, and you went to victory lane 3 times. Why are you such a quick study?
Yeah, that was my first time driving an open wheel car. But yeah, I think, growing up, I worked on cars a lot and I drove a lot of different cars. Working for my dad's racing team, I would shake down all our customer cars. I would work on the cars myself, and I would drive my own car. So I was always in different things, being able to adapt to different types of cars that I was driving, as well as running different GT3 cars and other cars throughout race weekends that people would have me drive here and there. So I've been used to adapting between different cars all my life. So I think that kind of helped me out, making the switch over to the open wheel stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's just another car with 4 wheels and a steering wheel, and you can figure it out. You can figure the thing out. So it just takes a little bit of seat time, but once I got there, I think we're pretty good.
America may have just met for the first time 1 year ago. Ernie Francis Jr., when you were part of the stellar field of all-stars for Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham's SRX series. And again, it didn't take you long to bust into victory lane. You came up short when Smoke won his very own championship. But running those cars and getting the spotlight put upon you in your career, how much do you think that's helped catapult you a little bit faster into that fast lane to stardom?
Oh yeah, I think the SRX series is definitely what got me where I am for sure. With this whole Indy Lights program and everything that I'm doing now, I credit it all back to the SRX series. That's really what made my name get out there. Being on live TV, racing against legendary drivers like Elio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan and Tony Stewart, really just put me on the map a little bit. And I think that's what really did it. So I'm just so thankful that I was able to race on that series last year. And, it was so much fun as well, being able to run with those guys that, I've always looked up to, and guys that are legends in my mind. To go to race on the same track as them was so awesome, and something I'm going to remember forever.
Tony Stewart has high praise for you. And in some cases, I think it's due to the fact that he sees the same sort of Stewart type personality in you. You do not back away from anybody. You when you get in that race car, you not only have the right to the lane, but you'll fight right to the bitter end. Where'd you get that attitude about racing?
Yeah, don't like to get pushed around too much, especially on the racetrack. I think that's down to my dad. Growing up, you always kind of have that mentality where, you stand your ground and you're not going to get pushed around when you're on the racetrack out there. Doesn't matter if I was younger than the other drivers out there or what they thought of me. So kind of brought that same driving style through everything that I've done. And, I think once we're on the racetrack, it doesn't matter who you're racing against, if it's Tony Stewart or Elio Castroneves or your local short track guy. We all want to win, and we all are going to do everything we can to make it happen. And I'm not going to get pushed around or pushed out of the way to make it happen for someone else.
Well, Tony has delivered high praise on previous visits with me here on Wind Tunnel.
Didn't even know anything about Ernie Francis till we invited him to SRX. But man, Leah and I are huge fans of him now. And now when he goes in races, we're trying to find the results to see how he did.
I wonder, what does it mean to you to have a guy like Tony Stewart so solidly in your corner as a cheerleader?
No, it is so cool. I'm a big fan of Tony Stewart, always have been. But he's also such a great friend also. Being able to get close with him over the SRX season this year, and talk to him. And then after SRX ended, I spent a week with him at the Knoxville Nationals, stayed in his motorhome with him, and really just had a good time with the guy. It's really awesome to have somebody like that in your corner. He has so much experience and so much advice that he can give. And it's just really awesome. And he's just a down to earth guy that, he really is just a good person. Having a friend like that is always great, especially in this industry. So he's definitely somebody I'm really glad that I was able to get hooked up with and get to know through the SRX series.
Ernie, there's all sorts of cliches that are applied to drivers, and then a lot of them reflect a specific style. When I watch the way you present your racecraft, I think it would be safe to say that you're a grinder. And what I mean by that in the most positive sense of the word is even if things aren't going your way in the beginning, you keep at it, and eventually, I don't know whether you just get the car to adhere to your will or you adjust. Do you consider yourself a grinder type racer?
Yeah, I think I'm able to adapt to the way a car is driving and make it work for what I have to do on track. I think that's something that, I've picked up on that I can do, and things that, I think my engineers have picked up on as something that, I can help get a bad race car to be closer to where we need to be if we don't have the setup to match right away. I'm going to work at it, and quitting is something that I don't do. So I'd say it's a pretty close attribute for how I treat my racing.
If it isn't enough, Ernie, for you to be embarking on a career in the road to Indy and with the prize that at the end could very well result with the financial backing to make it to IndyCar competition, you're also one of the standard bearers for, at least from the IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway side of things, their race for equality and change. Rod Reed, Force Indy's owner, also a minority, and you as a Haitian American. Do you feel that as a burden, or is that just something that makes you even more proud and maybe more desirous to be loud when you get there and, bust your way into victory lane in an Indy Lights car?
Yeah, I think it's such an amazing initiative that, Rod Reed and Roger Penske have put together. I think it's such a great program to show the more diverse side of racing that, you can do it too. And I think that's something that I've done over the course of my career. I love to meet the kids out there whenever I'm out there racing. SRX was awesome for it because you'd have kids coming up to me and wanting to know how I got into racing, kids that look like me, asking what they need to do to be able to make it. And next thing you know, they're wearing my T-shirts and sending me pictures on Instagram and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's really awesome how that all played out. So now to be a part of this program and really be like the spokesperson for what they're trying to do, it's just incredible. And, I don't think it's a burden at all. I think it's a great platform for us to show what we can do. And at the end of the day, we're all racers. It doesn't matter if it's Rod, me, our crew, Derek and Stu. We don't want to be judged by what we look like. We want to be judged by how we perform on the racetrack, because that's what really matters at the end of the day. We're all racers, and we all want to compete, and we all want to win. So that's our primary goal. And if we can do that while promoting the race for equality and change, then that's even better.
Throughout your career, you've never forgotten your roots. And more importantly, just as you mentioned, you've always maybe paid it forward by helping youngsters realize that they too can follow in your footsteps should they want to become a race car driver. Staying connected to that roots, to that young group that seems to be attracted by your winning smile and also your winning ways. How important is that to Ernie Francis Jr. as you move ahead in your career?
No, it's super important to me because, without fans and without, this younger generation getting into motorsport, we don't have a future in the sport. It's all about trying to get that younger generation into it. And it gets harder and harder all the time. Things with, kids used to really be into cars a ton, and now it's like harder and harder to get kids into it. So to be able to have this to where they can see a younger driver that looks like them racing out there, it really gives them a goal and an aspiration. But not only for me racing, but also like I said with our crew, they don't have to be a race car driver to be able to get into the racing industry. There's so many opportunities for people to get into the industry, whether you're on the mechanical side, the engineering side, the marketing side of it. It's such a huge industry, and there's a ton of opportunities in it. They just have to see that those opportunities are there and then go after them.
Well, Ernie, one thing we know is when they drop the green flag for that Indy Lights GP at St. Pete to kick things off this Sunday, probably the loudest cheers will be coming from your family in the grandstands. Family still so very important to your career. I really appreciate your visiting with us on the eve of your first Indy Lights race. Go get them, man. Just show them that the Trans Am Championships, all of your victories, they're no flukes. Just put your foot on their throat and take that Force Indy car to victory lane, okay?
Yep, will do. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
With Advance Auto Parts, you can get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. We have a wide variety of parts in stock, and you can get them fast. Order online with Advance Same Day and get your part with same-day pickup in-store, same-day curbside, or same-day delivery. It's the fastest way to get the part you need, where you need it, when you need it. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
And the 64th Daytona 500 is underway. Austin Cindric, whose grandfather won the Indy 500 as a car owner. Cindric is going to bring them to the line way up high to block Ryan Blaney, and at the line, Cindric beats Bubba Wallace by half a car length.
Holy cow's right, kid. You just won the biggest race of your life.
It's season 2 of your source for racing across America. It's Jack Arute's Wind Tunnel. Here's your host, Jack Arute.
Well, I couldn't be more pleased with my next guest joining me here inside the Wind Tunnel, because I truly believe he can give us a look inside this past weekend's Daytona 500 from so many different levels. We're talking about former NASCAR star Jeff Burton and also current NBC NASCAR analyst. But Jeff, you did something for the first time in almost 40 years at this year's Daytona 500. You looked at it through the perspective of a dad. What was your takeaway of the performance of your son Harrison in his first Daytona 500?
Yeah, I mean, I thought, first of all, Jack, thanks for having me on. I love your show. It's fun to be on. But, first, I thought that the whole week went exceptionally well for Harrison and his team. I thought that LA, went really well. They made the big show. They ran very competitively in the big show. And then they qualified well there. Then they go to Daytona, they qualify top 10, run third in the 150s and leading the race with 3 to go coming to the first stage and just, a big push from behind trying to get points. That's speedway racing, and end up getting in a wreck.
Oh no! Big crash on the back straightaway takes out William Byron, Kyle Busch, and Harrison Burton.
Come off the corner, the car got light exactly like I was talking about. Man, it went over too.
Car flipped upside down. I never got on my roof. In all the years I raced, I never got on my lid. So I was, I told Harrison after the wreck, I'm like, hey man, you got something I don't have. So not something he wanted, but you kind of, at Daytona and Talladega, as you know, there's times it's weird. You almost have to take the result out of those racetracks. And what job did I do as a driver? What job did I do as a spotter? What job did I do as a crew chief? And almost forget the finish. Unless you caused the wreck or you caused the incident, then you really need to analyze it. But in Harrison's case, I don't know what he could have done different in that situation. And I think in those wrecks, you look at it and say, could I have done something different? But then move on. You just got to move on. But I thought he had an extremely positive start to the year.
Those moments when that car got airborne, though, as a dad, what went through and coursed through your heart as it was end over end. And then finally, thank God, landed on all four.
Jack, I really believe that this car is, if you look at the center section and the structure of this car, it's a tougher race car than what we've had in the past. And he never really hit that hard. But they're not made, it's not good when they're not on their wheels. So I wasn't overly concerned because in looking at it and watching it live, and I was at the track, so it's pretty much in a distance. So I couldn't see all the details, but I knew it got on its lid, but it never looked like to me it didn't tumble, it didn't hit really hard. So I wasn't all that nervous. And then immediately, he was trying to get the car rolling. Like he tried to get it back to pit road, and I could see that. So I'm like, okay, well, got it fired back up and trying to get it rolling. He wanted to pull an Earnhardt and drive that thing back to pit road. And unfortunately, knocked those spindles off of it, so he couldn't do it.
There's been a lot of off-season speculation, and really, until they dropped the green flag with all 40 of those behemoths out there, we just had so many unanswered questions. We all have talked about it ad nauseum. The first time in the history of NASCAR that a race car was designed by OEMs, by individual teams, all of the different stakeholders. As a follower of this sport, and in your role as an NBC analyst, how would you grade the performance of the NextGen car at Daytona?
Pretty high, really. I mean, when you think about it, what I try to do, Jack, is I try to look at things in a whole, right? So we can't have a car that just works well at Daytona, right? Or just works well on a road course. Like, we have to have a car that works well everywhere. And so, I go back and I was at most tests the off season. I didn't go to Phoenix, but all the other ones I went to. What I see is a car that has a tremendous amount of positive capabilities. I also know that to maximize those, we're going to go through some growing pains, as Kyle Petty reminded me. In every major generation of car change, that we've gone through this evolutionary process. So, I thought the Coliseum exceeded my expectations in regard to what the car could do. I mean, think about that. We put a 3,400-pound race car on a quarter-mile racetrack, and it looked like a pretty normal race. I thought it was a good thing. It didn't look like a demolition derby. Well, LCQ2 did, but the rest of the races derby. It looked like just a normal race. And then you go to Daytona, and clearly there were some issues on Sunday. We had a wheel failure or whatever happened there. There are some issues, but for the most part, pretty positive. And the one thing that will happen with this car, and I saw it happen in the Truck Series when they came out with the engine, the Ilmore engine, and in the ARCA Series when they came out with the Ilmore engine. Anything that ever happened, they blamed it on that. I mean, a man could leave the battery loose and the battery fall out of the car, and it was the new engine's fault, right? So there's going to be a little bit of that as people sort through issues. But all in all, I mean, when you bring something brand new, and let's be clear, when I say brand new, there's nothing except the seat that you could use in this car versus last year's car. That's it. And to bring in something like that out and to have the few problems that we've had, I think that's pretty positive. But this is an evolutionary process. They will find things this coming weekend, and they'll find things next weekend that need to be applied to make the car better. There's no way you can clean sheet something and start from scratch and not make it better. So it will be an evolutionary process, and there will be times that things need to change.
From my perspective, watching it on television, Jeff, one of the major takeaways was the fact that I watched as these drivers from the first practice all the way down to that last lap continued to build their book as well in terms of how to deal with what the nuanced differences were in this next gen car. How did you see it?
I saw it a lot like that as well. We started talking about, Harrison's wreck. If you go back and think about post Harrison's wreck and how teams were working with each other, you saw people pushing while going straight, but not in the corners. Like they'd push each other down the straightaway, get to the corner and let the guy go, right? That's not something that you had to do with the last car. The last car, you could push all the way through the corner. And so, drivers learn, and spotters and crew chiefs learn from others' experiences. And that was just one example of how people changed how they were pushing because of the shape of the rear bumper and the nose. And then, pit strategies started changing. This car the pit stops happen faster than putting fuel in the car. So how do you take advantage of that? And there are a lot of things like that happen. And we're going to continue to see that. These teams learn fast. They have to learn fast. And you'll see them apply the things they learn in micro speed. It's pretty amazing how quickly they adjust.
And certainly looking forward to this weekend as we begin our West Coast tour, going back after almost 2 years being prevented from racing at Auto Club Speedway. That's going to build the book yet again. A couple of things, Jeff, that you think we should look at that will be different than they were in the Daytona 500 when it comes to running on that 2 Mile Auto Club.
These cars are hard to drive.
Yeah.
I mean, at the Charlotte test, every driver talked about the challenge of how hard they are to drive. And so keep your eye on that. There's a benefit, Jack, in driving this car hard, and there's a price to pay for driving this car hard. When you lose grip with this car, you better be ready, because they lose grip quickly. They don't make the side force that the previous car made. They don't make downforce the way that car made. And so drivers are going to have to find that limit. And many times when you find that limit, you find it by crossing over it. And now you're going to California, a racetrack that you just said we hadn't raced on in 2 years, a place that is excessive tire wear, excessive fall off on speed from the first lap to the 20th lap. This tire is excessive in fall off in speed from what we've seen at the test. So the car is going to change drastically from lap 1 to lap 20. And how teams and drivers deal with that is going to be fascinating to watch, because when that car starts losing speed, it loses speed because it loses grip. And when it loses grip, the driver still has to operate on the edge of it to make lap time. So what driver, what team is going to find a way to be comfortable in being uncomfortable? Like, how can you make a driver as comfortable as possible, flat sideways, car swapping around? That's what you're going to have. And who can take advantage of that? We've heard from the last several years that a lot of our fan base didn't like the restricted engines with the high downforce on the 1.5 miles. They felt like it took away the driver from the equation. I didn't view it like that. The best were still winning those races, right? I never viewed it like that, but some did. Well, if you like the driver to be tested, tune in because it is going to be the ultimate test.
During the course of Speed Weeks, Jeff, there were a couple of other news items that may have gone unnoticed by the average fan. I'm going to start with the announcement by Anheuser-Busch of putting $10 million of the course of the next couple of years to really accelerate females making it to the ultimate, and that, of course, would be the premier level, and that's in the NASCAR Cup Series. Was it time, Burton, for us to tackle this?
Well, listen, I think it's always time to try to make sure that we are giving an equal opportunity to everybody. And that's never wrong, right? And then how do you do that? I think that's the rub, Jack, is how do you make sure that we are finding ways to give equal opportunities, not equal results, equal opportunities when these guys start racing at 4, 5, 6 years old, right? So how do you do that? I think that's a major challenge for our sport, because, my son has a lot of friends that he raced with. Some have continued racing, some haven't. Some are at the Cup level, some are in trucks, some are in Xfinity, some are racing late model, some got out. They all started at 4, 5, 6 years old. If you start when you're 14, think about this. If you start when you're 14, you're 9 years behind.
Yeah. Never looked at it that way. I'm going to be talking to one of those Accelerate Her program participants, Brittany Zamora, a little bit later in the show. But will you explain to me what your role, because this is the other news that hit the bricks, so to speak, while you were in Daytona. You're now officially the chairman of the Driver Advisory Council. That's a mouthful there, Burton, but what is the role? And more importantly, what's the mission statement for this Driver Advisory Council?
Well, Jack, the mission statement is simply to try to help move the sport forward, create the safest racing that we can, and also try to provide opportunities for drivers on and off the track. But so what does that mean? What that means is the drivers want to see this sport better when they leave than it was when they got here. And every driver takes that responsibility to work with the sport to help move it forward. And when I say move it forward, better fan access, better racing for fans, better opportunities for as safe as racing as we can possibly have, knowing that what we do isn't safe. Like, just move the ball forward, make it better. Then everybody wins. And how do you do that? You do that by working with owners. You do that by working with NASCAR. You do that by working with the track operators, with working with sponsors. Just build a more cohesive industry. How can we play a role in that? How can we play a role in moving the ball forward? We all have the same goal. You and I, we both work in the media now. We want the sport to be the best it can. What can we do as drivers to make it so that more drivers can visit with you, more drivers can take time? How can we do that, right? And so this isn't a power play like we want more money. This isn't a power play. We're going to have the rules like this. This is nothing like that. This is how can we, as a group of drivers, work with the industry to the best possible way. And by the way, communicate better. If we just communicated better amongst ourselves and then also with the industry, that alone would make a difference. And that's a difficult thing to do because you have 40 drivers. They all have different opinions. We want those opinions. We want that personality. We don't want to tell a driver to not go talk to NASCAR. We want to encourage it. We want to encourage drivers to release themselves and be who they really are when they talk to the media, because that's what the fans deserve. And drivers deserve it. They deserve somebody to say, hey, it's okay. Like, it's okay to be yourself. Like, go do it. Go be yourself. And I think our fans will appreciate that. I think the sponsors will appreciate that. I think everybody will. Now, there's going to be times that Mike says, I don't like that guy's personality. So what? It's sports. You know, some people like Dale Earnhardt, some people didn't. Some people like Kelly Yarborough, some people didn't. Some people like Jeff Gordon, some people didn't. That's what's part of what makes our sport great.
Forgive me. I can't think of a single person that didn't like Jeff Burton.
Oh, I got a list.
Hey, listen, I do sincerely appreciate your giving us your perspective as we start the 2022 season. Good luck with the Driver Advisory Board, because I think it's something that is absolutely necessary for us to continue the momentum that was birthed at the LA Memorial Coliseum and then given some growth with the Daytona 500. And I'm sure we'll be chatting down the road, but I do appreciate it. Spend a little time in a little bit different wind tunnel than you're used to.
I like your wind tunnel. Fire that thing up. Let's get it going.
My man, thank you so much.
Next up on Wind Tunnel.
We are all the way on the track. Thought I was going to put her in the wall for a minute. I drove really hard and I just into the rear.
Brittany Zamora earns her second career pole coming at her home track of Evergreen Speedway.
She's been racing since the age of 4, and she hopes to parlay her Pacific Northwest short track success into a late model title in the East. You will meet Brittany Zamora next when we present this week's Advance Auto Parts Victory Lap.
With Advance Auto Parts, you can get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. We have a wide variety of parts in stock, and you can get them fast. Order online with Advance Same Day and get your part with same-day pickup in-store, same-day curbside, or same-day delivery. It's the fastest way to get the part you need, where you need it, when you need it. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
Man, this is for all those guys. There's a ton of them out there that are like me, that have won here and all these great short tracks around here. We can do it. We just need the opportunities. Today proved it. Yeah, it's a short track, but it's still damn hard to win here, and we did it.
They are hometown heroes. Drivers who put their passion on the line in front of their friends.
Here we go. 3 wide. Got Sellers up into marble.
Halfway home in this one. And here is
the fight fully. Off turn 4, he heads for the checkered flag.
They're 3 wide in 2 different rows.
Time now to focus the spotlight on hometown heroes with this week's Advance Auto Parts Victory Lap. Brought to you by the NASCAR Advance Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series, driving local racing in local communities forward.
Well, shining bright in the victory spotlight this week for Advance Auto Parts is a young woman who started racing at the age of 4, a second-generation driver who has won Advance Auto Parts track titles, state titles, and continues to climb up the ladder, having wheeled go-karts, super late models. Brittany Zamora, as you heard when my cohort Lenny Baticki was with me early in the show, is a true wheelman. I should say wheel woman, and she joins us now. Brittany, thanks so much for joining us here inside the wind tunnel.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about your climb to what I'm assume is your ultimate goal, and that is to be in a starting field for a Daytona 500 somewhere down the road. Was it according to plan? Because as we said, a family-run operation, your dad then seeing he had taken you just as far as he could, steps aside and kind of kicks you out of the nest.
Well, so I started racing, like you said, when I was 4, started in go-karts, and I immediately knew that like I was having a lot of fun with it, right? At 4, you don't really know what it means by having a career in racing, but I knew I had a lot of fun with it and did some local stuff. And then we won a championship in kit karts. So my parents were like, oh, she might be kind of good at this. So let's see what we can do. Got myself into go-karts until I was 14. And then won multiple championships in that, went to nationals and everything, and then got into stock cars, did mini stocks, late models, super late models, all that good stuff. And we're still really successful in that. Did a year of K&N in 2019, and now I'm back to the late model program. So short track racing is where I'm from, and it has my heart. So I'm glad to be continuing that with Rackley War this year, and excited to see what we can do together.
Yeah, Rackley War, well known, is also having maybe a carrot at the end of the stick for you. As I understand, Matty D's wheeling their truck right now. But how badly do you want to just not only prove yourself and win tons of races for Rackley War, but try to convince them to expand eventually into a 2-truck team?
I mean, personally, that'd be awesome. My goal is to, race as long as I can and be as competitive as I can. So that second part, I truly believe that Rackley War will, help me get there in those terms. But it kind of just comes down to sponsorship. We want people who have the same values as myself and as Rackley War to be on the car. So the phones are ringing for sponsorship over there, but it just kind of depends on if we feel it's a quality relationship and it's something that will be long-term, because we like to keep our partners and sponsors for more than just 1 year, So it's just, for me, I would personally love it, but we'll just kind of see what happens after this year.
Sounds to me like you've got a little bit of a realistic approach to what lies ahead. And yet you received a big shot in the arm with the announcement during Daytona Speed Weeks that Anheuser-Busch and their Busch Light brand was going to devote $10 million to you, Tony Bredinger, Natalie Decker, Amber Backlund, Jennifer Jo Cobb, Stephanie Moore, and Melissa Fifield in their first year of their Accelerate Her program. What can you describe to my listeners what that means to you and moving forward in your career?
Yeah, I think any sponsorship is huge to have, right? Whether it's small or big. And I'm just really appreciative that Busch Light believes in me as a driver on and off the track, and go out there and try and make them really proud this year. So basically, NASCAR is the only sport that men and women compete directly against each other, and underfunding in NASCAR is a big issue. So I think that Busch Light is doing a great job on getting women to the upper series, and I really like to see where this program goes,
Well, and one of the things that I thought was very interesting about the program and got my attention is it isn't just cash sponsorship. They're providing you with training, at-track opportunities. Certainly, we saw it being executed and implemented during the television coverage of the Daytona 500 when some of your female cohorts showed up and were part of the Busch Light series of commercials. What have they got planned for you in that regard?
I don't honestly. Well, it's a very new program. So I'm kind of getting used to being a part of it and seeing what they have in store for me. But it is just a really exciting opportunity. And it's just an honor that Busch Light, wants to do something like this. So the first people to do it and to step up in this kind of way for women and female athletes in motorsports. So it's just a really exciting opportunity, and hopefully I'll be able to expand on that a little bit more in the future.
We had the opportunity before you joined me, leading into you, kind of a tease, to listen in on some of your radio communication. And listen, with 50 years of experience, I've heard tons of drivers. Sounds to me that while you're calm, cool, and collected, you do not suffer fools lightly. When you're strapped in that race car, can you describe what your driving style is?
I think cool, calm, and collective is pretty, hits the nail on the head. I'm very patient when it comes to the car. I understand that they're long races and you have to make it to the end if you want to be successful. So just being calm and realizing that, how hard you need to push it, how early on, and you need to be aggressive in these cars, but it's knowing when. You can't just go and drive the nose off a thing and ram into people for no reason. So it's evaluating each car and knowing their driving style and what would be the best way to get around them. If it's, I need to get around them this lap because they're really hard to pass, or, if I can take 2 laps and figure out where I'm faster than them, then make my move, kind of calculate it, try and figure out how you can have the smoothest race possible, but still get to the front in enough time to be competitive there at the end. So I do get a little fired up. I mean, every racer does, right? If your heart's really into it, you get fired up, but it takes a lot for me to really get fired up over the radio. Usually if I do, I'll talk myself down and kind of figure that out, because I feel like if you get too crazy on the radio, it starts to affect the whole team. And I don't want to be the person that starts that. And I just want to keep our team, eyes on the goals and focus on what we're doing.
You won a series of Northwest Super Late Model Series titles. You made your bones and you started in the Pacific Northwest, but now you're right in the epicenter of super late model racing, and that's on the East Coast. And in fact, first woman to win a pro late model race in the 60-year plus history of the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. Is it any different now in terms of the level of competition or what you, Brittany, need as a skill set in your racecraft as compared to when you were just winning track championships, let's say at Evergreen Speedway in the Pacific Northwest?
It's tough. I feel like there is differences and there's not, because to a certain point, like, we're all short track racers and we have the same goals in mind. I grew up working on my car to get it to the track, and if I didn't work on it, I wasn't going to race. So I know what it takes to get the team ready and what it takes to make a race. But as far as like the competition level, like, I feel like the West Coast is a little underrated. They don't kind of fly under the radar, and nobody pays as much attention to them as we do out here. But the competition is still really stout out there. And I think that honestly geared me up for the right competition to be competitive out here. So I do think that some of the drivers out here are next level late model drivers. And it's going to be another adjustment, to continue racing out here and be top 3 and winning as I was out there. But I know I have the right car behind me. I know I have the right crew. Rackley War is amazing. And I just know if I put my time and effort into it and give it my all, that will likely have the same results as I did back out west.
I want to circle back for a minute, because in the midst of this climb up the ladder, and certainly, letting the world know about your racecraft, as you call it, a short tracker, you also decided to become a Washington State Cougar and, going off to college there in Pullman. So I wonder, when you were walking across campus or when you were going to classes, did people know that you were kind of like Superman, that on weekends you would go into a phone booth and come out in a fire suit?
So a lot of my classmates didn't know I raced. Kind of just growing up in school, I was gone, I feel like every Thursday and Friday because I was at the racetrack. So they knew where I was at. But kind of the same thing with WSU. I was gone traveling to and from races, and I was doing a lot of my work. I was doing a whole week's of work, Monday to Wednesday, so I could be gone through the weekend and go racing. So But yeah, I'm going to WSU and going for my degree. So balancing both is very time consuming, but also rewarding.
All right. What are your goals for 2022?
Ooh, that's hard. I feel like it's a new experience and it's new series, new drivers. So I'm not sure what my realistic goals are going to be for this year, but I do know that we have the potential to be one of the top cars and possibly compete for a championship. So if we can just go out there, it's a 6-race series, starting actually next weekend, the 5th. So it's coming up pretty soon, but just go out there and just be smart and be patient, but also, be aggressive when I need to and push the car to the limits that I know that it can take and see what we can do. I know starting off at the Alabama 200 is going to be a hard race. And so if we can get like top 5 or podium there, that would be great. A lot of big names going there, and a lot of those racers have a lot of experience at Montgomery. So me going in, being my first race, is just keeping your goals realistic, but still being able to achieve them and overachieve them. So just go do our best, and on my end, be as prepared as I can on off the track aspects from there, and hopefully we can be competitive and hopefully close to a championship at the end of the year. We'll see what we can do.
I have little doubt that success is on the immediate horizon for you, Brittany. But final question for you. You, like thousands, if not millions of us, sat and watched as a young rookie by the name of Austin Cindric scored the biggest victory of his life in giving his owner, Roger Penske, a grand 85th birthday present. When you look at the success of someone like an Austin Cindric, or you see where a former Advance Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series national champion like Josh Berry gets to parlay it and finally secure an Xfinity ride, does that make you hungrier?
Yeah, I think just being a racer, you're competitive in nature, and seeing somebody like Austin Cindric, who's only a couple of years older than me, going out and winning the Daytona 500, first time as at his first attempt as a full-time driver in the Cup Series, is you're like, dang, like I can do that too. And it's just, everybody has a little bit different paths of getting to the top series, but the goal is the same, right? To get there and race there and be competitive as a career. But it's just recognizing the different paths it takes to get there. I feel like that we all have our own struggles and kind of bridges to get over to get there, but it's you see stuff like that happen and you're like, okay, like it's a reminder that it still can happen, and just to keep your head up.
Brittany, this has been a real treat. I do appreciate your taking some time. My wishes for you are nothing but many, many, many checkered flags this season, and we'll continue to follow your progress as you pursue that golden ticket to the ultimate, and that would be a full-time NASCAR Cup ride. Thanks so much for visiting with me here inside the wind tunnel.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Advance Auto Parts Victory Lap, brought to you by the NASCAR Advance Auto Parts Weekly Racing Series, driving local racing in local communities forward.
With Advance Auto Parts, you can get the part you need from the comfort of your garage. We have a wide variety of parts in stock, and you can get them fast. Order online with Advance Same Day and get your part with same-day pickup in-store, same-day curbside, or same-day delivery. It's the fastest way to get the part you need, where you need it, when you need it. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
So our time this week has come to a close, but I am grateful that you decided to join me this week. Many thanks to my guests, the Mayor, Jeff Burton, Ernie Francis Jr., who embarks upon his pursuit of a full-time IndyCar ride when he and his Force Indy Lights team tackle the road course at St. Pete this weekend. And a rising short tracker, Brittany Zamora, who hopes to pilot her Rackley War late model into victory lane. I hope that you will join me again next week when we crank this wind tunnel up yet again.
You've been listening to Jack Arute's Wind Tunnel, brought to you by Advance Auto Parts, the official auto parts retailer of NASCAR. Follow us on our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And be sure to subscribe to Wind Tunnel's YouTube channel where you'll discover bonus content. I'm Lenny Baticki of Performance Racing Network's At the Track Show, saying thank you for joining us today. See you again next week.